This is the 8-9 Combo Podcast with Brett McKay and Harry Jones.
This is the 8-9 Combo. This is the test match post-mortem. And that was the final moments of a roller coaster ride of a Bledisloe Cup Test in Sydney. I'm Brett McKay. This is Harry Jones. And mate, as our podcast listeners just heard there, New Zealand retained the Bledisloe Cup for another year. But holy moly, what a surprise contest this was.
Oh, that was one of the weirder matches I've been to. I came in between the upper deck and then back to the press box. And the crowd got louder as the match went on. But I have to say, it started out in the worst possible way. So for the Wallabies to dig back into that, quite a tribute. And then we're still back to the same old question for these recent All Blacks. Why the fade at the end?
Yeah, absolutely. We're both at a core stadium here in Sydney. We are on either side of glass right now. We're not quite in the same room, but we're in with eye shot of each other. It's a weird feeling, mate. We're actually doing this in person.
You're in the HIA monitoring box. So
yeah, if you flip your camera around, I should be able to wave at you, I reckon. There we are. Hi, there I am. I'm in two glasses at once there. Yeah, so look, it's a weird feeling, but we're back with our immediate thoughts about what we have just seen in this incredible first Bledisloe Cup Test in Sydney this evening. We're really pleased to be brought to you across the Rugby Championship, as we have been, by Chasing the Sun 2, the wonderful 5-part all-access series documenting the Springboks' journey to their 2023 Rugby World Cup, and which is available now to watch on RugbyPass TV worldwide outside South Africa. Simply head to rugbypass.tv and sign up for free. Let's get into it, mate. Australia 28 have gone down to New Zealand 31 in Sydney. All Blacks led 28-14 at half-time. It gives you an indication of the contest in the second half. Obviously, Argentina, South Africa, still to come in Santiago del Estero later on tonight, Saturday time. 5-word headline. Let's get straight into it, where the wedding headline becomes the pod title. What have you got for me?
Slow start, almost finished.
Yeah. I've gone down similar route. Wanted good starting team, and it's been the story of the Wallabies all year, hasn't it? They just have not nailed their starts all this rugby championship at the very least.
And the restarts, the very first restarts, I think if Jeremy Williams goes up, the ball was going to go out dead on the full, and it would have been a scrum off. And instead, it was a series of phase attacks for about 15, 20 minutes, it felt like, where the Wallabies were pinned in their half, and there was not any territory to show for it, except the restarts where the All Blacks just built attacks. And there were many times when we felt like the All Blacks had two overlaps on either side of the ruck. It was baffling. Some of the slide defense wasn't sliding. It seemed like when the Wallabies turned around, right around and scored, you felt like this is a defense optional game, and yet it did finally tighten up. But I also said at the off, I said to people around me, I think 28's enough to win it, and it almost was. Because the Wallabies came back in 28. So it's one of those adages in Test rugby is you cannot start that badly. On the same time, I think the All Blacks go away from this match feeling more worried, more perplexed, and probably more disappointed, even though they are currently lugging around the Bledisloe Cup.
Yeah. So let's touch on that, because it was a proper game of two halves, and I can't quite work out whether the Wallabies were actually good enough to get themselves in the game here, or whether New Zealand actually buggered a few things up and let them back in, because it's still not 100% clear to me.
Well, let's be honest. The All Blacks formed enough attack ball and enough red zone presence that it should have been at least 42. Yeah. And so, but that's not to downsell the Wallabies for fighting your way back in. That takes spirit. And I just think when you win the second half by, 14-3, You feel a
Yeah.
little better about yourself than if you're the All Blacks and you come into this match knowing that your ability to finish the final 20 is in question, and then they were nowhere and somewhat fortunate to escape.
Yeah.
So I would think, they go. I don't think Joe Schmidt's minding this too much, although I think he would hate the start. There's something at Oranges was fixed.
Yeah. It was an incredible fight. I mean, New Zealand had 3 tries disallowed for various different reasons. Australia buggered a couple up as well with a few knock-ons and forward passes and things like that. So, I mean, it could have been a really high-scoring game. What worked well for New Zealand in this game tonight?
So in the start, there was pressure that never was relieved. Even when there was a let-off, they just kept it on. The particular setup with Cortez Raitema at 9 looked better than when TJ Perenara came on. There was also not much punch with ALB coming on again. And I felt like there were moments where, like I said, there were 2 overlaps. And so I think something in the formation of 10 to 12 was working. Damien McKenzie looked better. That all seemed to work until it didn't. And so it's a bit of a riddle.
So Damien McKenzie looked better, and we've touched on this. Beauden Barrett didn't play in this game. Was a late withdrawal we heard before kickoff due to overnight illness. And then Geordie Barrett doesn't come back out in the second half after the break. He went down with a knee injury we saw just before the break. And looked to be in a bit of trouble too, which would be a concern for next week. So, but you're right. When Anton Lienert-Brown comes on, and he and Damien McKenzie have played a lot of football together, there was a surprising disconnect, wasn't there, between 10 and 12?
Yeah, and they still created enough chances to win it. They were just little tiny errors. There was impatience on the final ball. I think the New Zealand will go back and watch the film of this match. Like I said, could be 42, could have been 49. Because some of the scores that were erased did not come back for advantage the way the Wallabies did. They were flipped around, so they actually had turnovers. I think that will just do their heads in. To start out, what was it? What was the start? 21-7? There was a point there where it was, at that point in time, I didn't understand the Wallaby defensive setup. It was
21-0 after 16 minutes.
21-0. At 21-0, you would think the All Blacks can put that game to bed. A proper top 3 test side playing a number 8 or number 9 up 21-0 has to finish it out. And from that point on, there was a series of let-offs, soft tries, and I would think, like I said, I think that this coaching staff of Razor Robertson is still under pressure and has not relieved their pressure. It's the same thing that their team did against the Wallabies. They relieved the pressure, and then now it's back on them.
Yeah, no, it's a fair point. A quick word on how the Wallabies managed to get themselves back in this game in the second half. I mean, certainly in the first half, Fraser Wright scores that try, that first try. Matt Fessler pulled out of a maul and scored just before the break, and then Hunter Paisami scores in the second half. Tom Wright scores that late try as well. What was the moment where you thought, oh, geez, the Wallabies are actually well back in this?
It was actually when they went for poles to go 3 scores up. It felt like if they had really believed in themselves, they would have done all black ball and gone for the 7, or at least 1 penalty advantage and got some cards. Instead, it was them getting carded, and the lead came back to a 2 score and then a 1 score. So in the end, it felt like the bloody mindedness, we've been talking about this all season, the bloody mindedness, the ruthlessness of the All Blacks was not apparent. If you give Ireland or the Springboks a 21-0 lead, they're going to put that game to bed. There's also that specter that the All Blacks had is they don't believe in their bench. They don't believe in strategic introduction of the bench. The bench seems to be kind of an afterthought. And in every case, it felt like the player coming on was not as good. Even though, like, Sam Cane did miss a tackle on that Fessler try and got run over. It just felt like you take him off and you bring on someone else. They were making even more errors, and then the cards came. I would imagine that if there's one thing they will point to is those cards, though, because that game became so much closer because of the cards. It just felt like down at the end, and even with this final scrum, you wondered about the ability to do the reversal, and I was waiting for the reversal. That would have been the next plot twist, was a scrum penalty.
Yeah.
That's why in front of us you saw no one left. I mean, very few people left.
Yeah. I just want to go back to the bench because I was actually taking note of that in this game. And at halftime, Ethan de Groot came off, and it was his first game back for a while, so that wasn't overly surprising. But early in the second half, Joe Schmidt swapped, brought off. Tenniel Turbo came off in the 44th minute. Angus Bell came off in the 50th. Matt Fessler in the 53rd. And then followed that with Nick Frost in the 56th. So in the space of 10 minutes, he replaced all front row and a line-out forward as well. New Zealand didn't make another change up front until the 62nd minute. That was when Cody Taylor came off. And then wasn't until the, where are we here, 70th minute that Tyrell Lomax went off. So that's 3 games in a row now, I think, that Tyrell Lomax has gone deep into a game. So the question there is the New Zealand front row stocks as deep as we think?
Yeah, I'm wondering whether it's just a matter of not believing in their talent to go deep, or if there's something more strategic, like they think they have an advantage.
Yeah.
But it's not working. Whatever that theory is behind it, it's been tested in about 4 or 5 lab experiments now, and the only bench player who's made any impact at all this season has been Bowden Barrett from 23. Everyone else seems to have been chunked in there, whereas I think you saw Lukan Salakaya-Loto, and he made serious impact. I mean, really played well in that spurt of energy that got the Wallabies back in. So I think, I think what worked for the Wallabies is timely and coherent substitution patterns.
Yes.
And until the All Blacks figure that out, they're going to be struggling to finish out games.
Yeah. It's very apparent for me tonight that and Schmidt went to his front row bench earlier. He's definitely gone earlier in this game than he has in past, and there was just a lot more bench impact across the board, across all 8 players off the bench. There was more. We've sort of touched on restarts as a big one. What else did you not like from the Wallabies tonight?
Missing first-time tackles. It did get done because I feel like the All Blacks conditioning is suspect this year. So I think it was harder to burst through tackles, but there was about 22 or so missed in the first half. And they were not 20, the kind of missed tackles that you like. Sometimes you like a missed tackle because you were behind enemy lines and you were forcing errors. These were in space, got to make the tackle, didn't make the tackle, creating overlaps. And I think there was a sort of a steamroller approach there. There was a moment in time where I thought it might be, a record score. I really thought this is just going to keep going. I was yelling out, do something different. And what wasn't working was that Nick White kept doing the same restarts. There was the same build-up, and there were the same errors at ruck. Something did change. I don't know if it was coach-driven or captain-driven, but there came a moment where there was a maul and a maul drive, and I said, thank you, something different. Even if it didn't work, just something different.
Something, It was, I mean, the Wallabies spent most of the first half tackling, and you're right. So they did miss a lot, but they made a lot. They made 115, 117 tackle attempts to, I think New Zealand had maybe 40, 42 tackle attempts, of which they missed 7. So that evened up in the second half, certainly. Who learnt more from this game in short term for Wellington next week and perhaps in longer term as well?
So I watched you. I've never watched you watch a game before, and I saw you taking copious notes. And I was imagining Joe Schmidt taking copious notes along the lines of what you were doing, and maybe his people too. I thought the Wallabies learned more. I thought the Wallabies learned more about how to contain and play a tighter game. The tighter approach worked better. It is no use at all trying to play I score 1, you score 1, you have an overlap, I have an overlap. The All Blacks will play All Blacks ball better than the Wallabies will play it, even if the Wallabies can play it about, as good as anyone else, but it's still the All Blacks kind of style. The reason why I don't say the Razor would have learned that much. It's because he hasn't shown an ability to learn why he loses or why he almost loses. He seems to be stubborn, which can be one way new coaches do it. Other one, you don't want to show weakness, and I know that too. You're a new coach, you don't want to too much, but I think there needed to be adjustments. And I'm worried that he is digging in because he's not used to losing and doesn't know how to understand losses very well. Do you think that's possible? I mean, coming from Crusaders, 7 consecutive titles, maybe he just doesn't know how to analyze losses.
Yeah, and again, we've sort of touched on this in the last few weeks, is that he's really in unfamiliar territory here right now, isn't he? He doesn't appear to be learning from his mistakes, which is really interesting in itself, because you would think someone that is so ingrained with success would be really conscious of that. And we haven't seen a lot of evidence of that yet, which makes the turnaround for next week in Wellington really intriguing about this contest now, because I agree with you. I think the Wallabies take a lot out of this game. They can go to Wellington with actually a fair amount of confidence, I think, because they know that they can open the All Blacks up. They know that they can and did find some defensive seams between midfield and the forward pack where they did split them open. Even if they know that New Zealand will correct a few of those, I think they'll see Wellington next week as a big opportunity.
Look, when you lose a game, but you won the second half 14-3, and you know that if you kept playing for 10 more minutes, you would have won by 10. You always want to play the next. You want to go, let's play right now.
Yes.
I'm looking at the field. I see some Wallabies.
Let's turn around. Let's get back out on the field here now. Let's go. Taniela's still out there right now.
Taniela Tupou has his boots off and he wants to run. Yeah, so that's the difference. That's the feeling you have when you just get pipped at the post, but you really think you could have actually run away with the game.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that Razor lost. I'm saying he lost the second half. He lost the last 20 minutes so badly.
Yeah.
And so repetitively after Cape Town, to Johannesburg, after almost doing it to England twice, that we just don't see the evidence that he's able to structurally and fundamentally shift the way he introduces new energy, positioning, doesn't seem to be able to take that onslaught. And I actually think, just looking at the players, it looked to me the All Blacks were gassed in Cape Town. They were not loving it in Johannesburg, and they didn't seem to be too comfortable in Sydney in the final 20.
Yeah. I'm not sure New Zealand would want to keep playing this right now. I can still see a couple of All Blacks down there with friends and family, just down there in that spot over your left shoulder. So, the Wallabies may well want to keep playing, but
most of those guys weren't even in the 23. I see Mark Talea.
No, but I can see Caleb Clark. Caleb Clark is still down there, and I'm sure I can see Rieko Ioane down there as well.
Yeah, sure.
So anyway, we're getting off track there. Can I just go back a couple of minutes there ago where you said, and I want to have a chuckle at the fact that the notion of you saying that the All Blacks play All Blacks ball as good as anyone else?
Oh, sorry, I meant the Wallabies. If you had someone to mimic the All Blacks, the Wallabies might be your best bet, but it's still All Blacks light in the end. So you're better off, making the All Blacks play badly is always the best strategy, better than saying, I will do more line breaks than you. It's fool's gold. Yeah, because Tom Wright had several chances and he just wasn't used to them, couldn't finish them off. There were several positions where you just think, Paisami just get in a different slot, or Kellaway just run in instead of out. And those things, they can be corrected. Whereas to me, a lack of conditioning or lack of belief in your bench is very difficult to turn around in a week.
There was a couple of those moments where I thought, and you mentioned them, like Marika Korombete almost didn't know how to support a Tom Wright line break because he'd almost never been in that situation before. We've just opened up the All Blacks out wide from a set play, and where do I need to be for that? It was almost like they'd never rehearsed that before. So there was a few moments like that. Do you think this is a game where Joe Schmidt says to them on Monday or Tuesday, boys, finally, this is what I'm talking about. This is where the cogs are starting to work for us in our favour.
all right, when you're losing, coach, when you lose a match, you have to give a story that tells your team you could have won it. This is not a difficult story to tell. They could have won it. He also will add the chastening message of, and we could have been buried at 40. So let's not get too ahead of ourselves either. The truth is, Wallabies are going to have to start so much better to be in the picture.
Yeah.
But the truth also is, no one needs to go on the field thinking they're outmatched. There's not one. There was a lot of stories out there. There's someone running a story about only one Wallaby would make a composite team. I mean, that's just facile. These things are developed by games on the field. And at the end of this game, you wouldn't have said 14-1. You wouldn't have done that. So, no, that's just silly. And so I think, no one in the Wallabies needs to be worried about playing next week. What they need to be worried about is finishing their own breaks. And on the defense side, this slide is giving me a hernia. Like, I don't see I don't see how it works. It's sliding to nowhere. It's a slide rule. It's a sliding scale. It's got nothing. You're not forcing the attack to make decisions quick enough or uncomfortably enough. When there was a moment where New Zealand pressed up in a mini blitz, there was a lost ball and they scored. And then there was 2 scores where it just seemed like the defense parted like the sea. That's got to get fixed. And so that's structural. I don't blame the players. They're doing exactly how they're coached. The 12 and 13 are running together as a unit to the side and giving way. The bend but break thing's not working at Test rugby level.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I mean, had you have said to me a couple of hours ago as we rocked up to the stadium that you're going to walk away from this game actually fairly satisfied with the 3-point loss, I would have ripped your bloody arm off in taking it. But I think Wallabies fans should take a lot out of this performance because it was really, really encouraging. And I should also say that such was the media interest in this, is that we were in an overflow box with a number of Rugby Australia staff, which actually gave us the benefit, or gave me the benefit of actually being a little bit more animated in a press box situation than I would normally be. But you could actually feel it. There was, we were riding the highs and the lows and the frustrations and the driving them home to score those second half tries. You could feel the nervousness, you could feel the tension, and like that's a really good thing. And I just think the Wallabies should be, they'll be disappointed they lost that, but they should be really proud they've come as close as they have to pulling off what would have been the upset of the year. There's no question about that.
I mean, that was the first time I was in a press box in rugby, and it was almost funereal quiet when I was in there.
Half time, yeah.
But then there was a sweary index I would use, and so as the Rugby Australia guys were swearing more, I thought, well, they actually believe they can win. These are meaningful swear words being said. And then when I was outside in the crowd in general, it also had too much quiet. It was a bit of 50-50 crowd, I think, All Black fans to Wallaby fans, especially on the other side. But I would think that final 10 minutes was pretty fun for people. And so, I think they gave them a show. It's frustrating for me to be around Australian rugby this long and not have a high moment related to the All Blacks. So, you would think that they're itching to go to Wellington, and good on them. By the way, the stadium was brilliant. Food, magnificent. Places to piss, plentiful and bountiful, and very organized. The number scheme had some rationality, unlike many stadiums I've been to recently. So I had a lot of doomsday talking about the Accor, that it wouldn't have any atmosphere. I thought it's fine. It corresponded with the play on the field. As the play went up, it got loud.
It was great. More than 68,000 here for the test, which is a fantastic turnout. It was a fantastic atmosphere, and I now can't wait for Wellington next weekend. I think it's going to be a fantastic performance, a fantastic match. I'm really, really looking forward to it. But, mate, I think we call it a wrap on this, the first Bledisloe Cup edition of the Test match post-mortem. It's time for a beer, I think, and with that, our service to Bledisloe Test Rugby is done. What have you made about watching a game of rugby together?
Hey, man, it was fun watching it. You are very intense. You are locked and loaded. You have earphones and laptops and Wi-Fi. You have a notebook. It's almost like Jonathan Kaplan's spreadsheet in that you have notes and stuff. I realized, oh man, I'm just pulling things out of my arse. But No, it's actually very nice. In fact, if I could watch a rugby match with you, I could really be off the hook because I just would look at your notes. I was doing that, like, what happened? Oh, thanks.
Yeah. No, it was really good. And if you pop on the 8-9 combo social, or maybe Harry's socials, there's a photo of both of us very much in intent mode. We were very good. That's the voice of the 8-9 combo down there.
Is the voice of the 8-9 combo.
It is. Tell us what you think at the 8-9 combo and all the socials. Leave your thoughts in the comments section right here on the 8-9 YouTube channel. Or tell Harry and I on the socials in our usual places as well. Make sure you've liked and followed and subscribed on your pod platform of choice and YouTube right now, and you'll definitely get every episode as soon as it drops. Please don't forget to head to RugbyPass.tv, and where you can now watch both series of Chasing the Sun, the documentary series celebrating South Africa's back-to-back Rugby World Cup wins in Japan and France. We're so pleased that everyone can now watch Chasing the Sun too. It's a brilliant series, and make sure you sign up for free. Oh, now you've got me reading my notes here. This is the test match post-mortem from the 8-9 combo, the short side set piece combination you didn't realise you needed, coming from the podcast double act you already had. I'm Brett McKay. There's Harry Jones, and we'll be back in your ears with New Zealand Herald chief sports writer Liam Napier this week.
Come play with us.
This is the 8-9 Combo Podcast with Brett McKay and Harry Jones.